Welcome to the Made for Business show, where Catholic moms come to learn how to build a business that is simple, holy, and profitable. I'm your host, Sterling Jakewith, and I'm here with Emily Ricci of Gloriam Marketing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, first of all, I just love talking to Catholic mom business owners. I think it's so fun, and we have some really fun things that we're going to talk about today. So tell us a little bit about what your business does. It's a marketing firm.
Yeah. So we're a Catholic marketing agency that serves churches, businesses, and ministries to help them market like Jesus did. Really diving into how Jesus and the apostles grew the early church and how we can actually use those same strategies today in our ministries, in our businesses, in our parishes to help grow them in the same way.
Yeah, I love that. And, we need that. We need Catholic marketing firms, especially ones that are accessible. A couple come to my mind that are really, really big. And you're not talking to anyone for less than 20 or 30 grand. And that's great. But I feel like you serve the little guy, like you serve, the one woman show or, a simple parish, and that your price points are really accessible for somebody like that.
Yeah, I definitely try to. And I'm in that same sort of sphere, right? I'm a mom, a business owner, a wife, and many, many other titles. And I get that juggle and that struggle for real. So, I see this as a business, of course, but also a ministry as well.
Yeah. So, okay, I didn't ask you this ahead of time, but I'm curious because there are so many bad parish websites, like so bad, like they're so bad. You're like, who did that in 1997?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm imagining someone who's like on the parish council and they know that their website is bad.
Yeah.
Why is it worth it for a parish to spend, I don't know, $1,000 to $5,000 to change their website when it isn't a business and it isn't necessarily going to change they're still just going to offer mass and confessions at the time that they do.
Yeah.
So what do you say when you're talking to people where you're like, you know what, this really is worth the investment. It is going to help you. How is it going to help them?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the main thing to think about is that the target audience for a parish website is not your current parishioners. And everybody thinks that. You think it's the people who you're already serving. And so that's why the menu structure looks like it does, because if your group is not on the menu, then it must not be important. But really, actually, you're targeting people who might be visiting your parish or might be thinking about becoming Catholic, and who would never actually step foot on your physical campus, but you can attract them to your digital campus through your website.
I love that answer. That totally makes sense to me. And you're right, because if I'm going to the parish, I'll slog through whatever to figure it out. But if I was shopping parishes and it wasn't great, I might just skip yours. And they all have an evangelization mission. So I think that would speak to the council or the priest and help you to kind of campaign for that. So I wanted to ask you that because I know that there are probably women who would drive some bananas that their parish website's so bad and they would love for you to do it, but they have to convince someone. So I think that's a great reason for why it would be worth that time. I'd be worth that time. Okay. Awesome. And so tell me more about marketing like Jesus would. I think that's such an interesting concept, and a lot of really faithful Catholic women start businesses, but then they feel a little icky about the marketing part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I have my master's in theology, and I have always loved biblical studies. My first memory as a kid was reading my children's Bible from cover to cover and running out to my mom, being like, I read the whole Bible in a day. So I've been that kid my whole life. But I also have this practical business marketing background. And the more I started looking at everything, I realized Jesus was doing this. Jesus had a target audience. He wasn't trying to reach everybody. He's very specific about the people who he's talking to, and he ruffled some feathers that way, right? He has a value proposition. He has all these buzzwords that we use in marketing. He did it before we made it cool, right? We can look at how the church grew from literally 12 people, right, to this really large organization now that, we're now in the billions, right? And so when we look at that, there has to be a practical strategy there, right? Like
Mm.
he didn't just come and was like, oh, I'll just see what happens. And God was like, maybe I'll save the earth. Maybe I won't. Like it's literally been planned since Genesis that this is how salvation history was going to go down. And if we look at that plan, we can actually use that as a marketing plan.
Yeah, I love that. And also, I mean, if God has put something on your heart, if he's put a business on your heart, he doesn't want you to hide it in your house, right?
Yeah.
Like you do have to go out and find clients to
Yeah.
do the work that he does. And I know a lot of you are looking at secular programs or even secular marketing companies and just worried that they're going to put you in a position that you don't want to be in, right? They're going
Mhm.
to kind of ask you to compromise yourself. And so, but because of that, a lot of you are not doing anything, right? And then your business isn't growing. And so you just kind of feel stuck there. And so what kind of marketing work do you do with companies that help them to grow their business? Because that word is such a big term. So I think for some people, they're not sure what that means.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
So I kind of split this off into two things, right? I look at the practical side, which is like website design, creating a lead magnet, email marketing, advertising, all of that. But then there's also the consulting and strategy side. And I really
Mm.
find that that is a great way for particularly women business owners to start, of just being able to talk to another female business owner who not only gets the mom life, but also gets the faith life, right? And really
Yeah.
being able to dive into that strategy. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, if you don't know where they live online or in the physical space, you're not going to be successful with the more practical pieces. Once we know who you're
Yeah.
talking to, what your message is, and all of that, then we can look at those practical pieces and make sure that those communicate that. But really, the place to start is just knowing who God has called you to serve.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So even if somebody knows that they may do the marketing themselves, they could just kind of spend an hour or two with you and you could just
Yeah,
help them unjumble the mess in their mind of all of
yeah,
their ideas and also
exactly.
give them feedback like, no, that's not a good idea. That's
Yeah,
too vague. That's too broad. That's too, because you guys, I want you to know you're going into the internet, which is a very loud and noisy space.
yeah,
And you have to do very specific things so that your light shines bright enough and cuts through the noise.
exactly.
And I think those of us who do a lot of sales and marketing, we can see pretty quickly like, oh no, that's not going to stop their scroll. And here's
Yeah,
why.
yeah,
And it's definitely worth just a second set of eyes on your ideas, because if you're going to go through all of the work of emailing people or posting things online, but it's watery, right? You're going to feel tired, but it's not landing. It's not working.
exactly. Exactly. And I have so many people who come to me, I'll ask them, who are you talking to? Who are you called to serve? And they'll say, my ministry serves everyone. It serves all
Yes.
Catholics. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, Jesus didn't even try to do that. So let's like tone it back a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Like if the savior of the universe was like actually very specific in who he was talking to, we should probably try to
Yep.
do that too.
I love that. Yeah. And I say this oftentimes in my discovery calls with clients. If what you do, if you say it to a room of 100 people and everyone kind of wants it, no one will raise their hand. And so some examples are like, who wants to be healthier? Who wishes they had more time? Right? Who wishes they were a better mom? But if
Mhm.
you asked a room of 100 moms who wishes they were a better mom, well, it's all of them, but it's not a strong enough question to get anyone to raise their hand.
Yeah,
And so marketing something much more specific is how you're going to get people to work with you,
yeah,
and it
exactly.
seems counterintuitive because Catholics have such big hearts and they want
Yep.
to serve everyone. But then by trying to serve everyone, no one raises their hand.
Exactly. Exactly. And the more specific you get, the more people you can actually reach. It doesn't make sense, but that is how marketing works, is when you get more specific, then you're able to actually serve people in a really personal way, which again is how Jesus did it.
Yeah. The other thing I like to tell people is even if you get extremely specific in your marketing, you're not closing the door to anyone else working with you. Like someone who isn't whatever you're targeting very specifically might still show up because they heard about you
Yep.
and they'll say, do you work with people like me? And then you can still say, yes, yes, I
Yep.
will work with someone like you, even if it wasn't, who you were targeting. So I agree. It's
Exactly.
it's a funny misconception
Yep.
that people
Yep.
have. They think it's easier. Okay. So I love that. So you do marketing for people, but do you do social media stuff for people?
Right now we're not doing like ongoing social media, but I'll do like social media audits. And always
Mm,
during consultations, it comes up as part of, the strategy and everything.
yeah.
So I don't do the physical posting, but I do a lot of the strategy side, helping you come up with a plan and that sort of thing.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm telling you guys, like having someone who knows what they're doing, just scroll through your Instagram account and give you feedback is just very helpful because it will also shortcut your effort and your work after that because you'll be able to see, oh, like, okay, that posted well. Here's why. And you might even see that a post did well, but you may not know why. But a
Hmm.
marketing person usually can tell you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I love that. Okay. So you have this business. How long have you been doing this?
So I've been doing this for 6 years.
Yeah.
Funny story is I started the business I started the business. I'd say I started the business the day I started the Facebook page because that's the day it felt official.
Yeah.
And the very next day, my now husband proposed to me. So the literal
Yeah.
first year of the business was just like a Facebook page that existed.
Mm,
But then
yeah.
it, kind of continued to grow. I was still working full time in higher ed marketing at that point. And so it's kind of just continued to grow and continue to grow over the years.
Yeah. That's super fun. Okay. So you do it from home
Yep.
and you just had a baby. How old is your baby?
So I have a girl who will be 2 in December, and I
Yep.
have a boy who will be 6 months on Saturday.
Okay. So let's
Mhm.
go back to the girl for a second. Were you working full time at home on this business before she was born?
So I wasn't. I was working full time in higher ed. I was also teaching at the college and running the business. So I
Yeah.
was
I mean,
always
that's how it
doing
is, you
multiple
guys.
things.
I mean,
Yep.
it's on the side until it's big enough, right? And
Yep.
and sometimes we have to jump before we feel ready because it doesn't quite replace our income, but we have to leave the other job to have time to grow it. So there's kind of
Yes.
this funny chicken and egg moment where you
Yep.
jump. Okay, so
Yep.
you jumped after she was born.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you're rocking and rolling on this business and you're helping businesses. And then boom, you get another pregnancy test.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And so then
Yep.
what was going through your mind? You're like, oh, I have this business. It all requires me. There's no maternity leave in entrepreneurship, you guys, right? Like
No.
you still have to do it. It's just
Yep.
you. So what were you thinking right then when you
Yeah, so he was planned. We were trying to have our kids close together. So they're 17 months apart, and we'll get to why they're 17 months apart. But they're 17 months apart. And so, obviously the excitement and all of that, and then very quickly realizing I already feel overwhelmed with just
mm,
one in trying to run this
yeah,
business nights, naps, weekends, like we all do, and trying to figure out what was that going to look like because there's only one of me and
yeah,
now many people depending on me.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how
Yeah.
did you begin to prepare for that? And I know it's coming, but how did you begin to prepare for that being like, okay, here's when the baby's coming,
Yep.
but it is you and you do have a lot of clients. What did you put in place for that
Yeah.
time?
So I was due in July of 2022. And so I was really intentional about, I was actually planning a launch for mid-May for a
Okay.
course that would be kind of evergreen. I was like, great, that way there's something that's going on. I can promote that in my newsletter, all these things, really. And I was very conscious of, I was going to stop work 2.5 weeks before my due date. So I was like, I'm going
Okay.
to stop then. I told all my clients, this is my end date.
Yeah.
And I was really intentional about setting up systems of like, okay, I'm going to, put out of office on and all of those things. That is not what happened.
No, what happened?
Yeah. So 2 days before my launch,
Okay.
I had, long story short, I had decreased fetal movement, started getting worried, called the midwives, and I was like, called the midwives. I always have to laugh when I say that I
Yeah.
called the midwives.
Yeah.
It was not
Yep.
the show. But,
Yep.
and I was like, it's nothing. It's nothing. Ended up having
Yeah.
him by C-section about 9 hours later. And so he
Yeah.
was 9 weeks premature,
Nice.
which was obviously, personally a whole thing. But then from the
Yeah.
business front, literally about 6 hours after surgery, I'm emailing people of like, hey, I'm not meeting with
Yeah.
you tomorrow. All of these
Yeah.
things. So yeah, it was a juggle. It was a juggle.
Yeah. That is what happens. I will say, I think all humans are pretty good, but especially when you have Catholic clients. And then, of
Yes.
course, all of my clients are Catholic moms. People
Yes,
are so gracious.
they are.
People are so understanding.
Yes.
And when you just communicate with them, I do find most people are very reasonable about, what's going on. And so,
Yes.
and then when you have a NICU baby that's that early, mom is usually in the hospital for quite a long time too. How long were you there?
I was actually only there 3 days. So
Okay,
my
3 days.
recovery was great. But
So
the
were
struggle
you
was
driving? You had to
I
like drive back in? Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay.
we were in another state. So I gave birth to him in a different state than the state that we live in.
Oh no.
So I had an 18-month-old at home and the baby in a different state, across the border. And so yeah, it was a lot. Thankfully, my husband had some time saved up. Had some
Mm,
people who were able to drive me because right after a C-section, you can't drive for a little bit.
right.
And so
Yeah.
it was a whole thing.
It is. No, I remember with my first daughter, she had a weird infection at 6 weeks, and we were in the NICU for 10 days. And I was there for the whole 10 days, and it was just so overwhelming and exhausting. And I remember thinking, how does anyone do this with another child?
Yeah.
And I had only had the one child, but I was like, what would I do? And you know
Hmm.
what? I've now known lots of women who have gone through that, and people just come around you and they support you and you get it
Yes.
done. Like
Yep.
that's what it is. It's just like a whole
Yeah.
group of people that show up and go, I'll take your kid, I'll bring you coffee, I'll drive you, just that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, we were so blessed with that. He was in for 6 weeks. So
Mhm.
it was a long time, but thankfully the
Yeah.
NICU that he was at was amazing. And so it was at least comforting as a mom being able, having to leave him at the end of the night to go, take care of my other kid.
Yeah.
That the nurses were just fantastic and just such
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah. That's what I find particularly about NICU nurses. They're just very
Yeah.
special people.
Yes.
Okay. So then you're kind of home, you have this baby. Talk to us about what it's like to run, not an insignificant business firm while having a newborn. How do you handle baby is fussy or baby wants to eat? Are you like having Zoom meetings with people but turn your camera off? Like what does that look like now with him?
Yeah, yeah. So practically with him, he because of his prematurity, I wasn't able to breastfeed him. But I'm pumping. So still have that fun thing. And yeah, so doing the pumping thing, all the naps, all that sort of thing. And it's a lot of just reminding myself of my mission and that God has called
Yeah.
me to this, and reminding myself of the people that I work with. I work with, probably I would say at least 50 to 60% of my clients are Catholic moms. So like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
also turning off their cameras and breastfeeding in the middle of a Zoom call, right? Like it's
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
what we do. And it's just being conscious. I have, one person who I meet with who's married but doesn't he's a man and he doesn't have kids. And I'm like, okay, I'm probably not gonna like bring this up right now
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
know I know that this is just gonna be a really interesting conversation, right? But it's just a lot of grace and it's a lot of being
Mm.
flexible with myself and thankfully having really flexible clients too.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And I just want all of you to know, because I think a lot of women are scared to start a business. They're scared to grow their business. And I think some of them think they have to wait until after they're
Yeah.
done having all of their kids, because how would you do it? And we can't tell you how. We can't tell you how, and we're not going to tell you it's going to be easy.
No.
Right? It's not like, oh, it was dreamy and it was just fine. Like it is really hard and you will cry and you will be tired, but it is possible.
Hmm. Yeah. And
It is
I've been
possible.
really intentional this time around of it's going to sound weird, but I take a lot of pictures of myself
Mm,
working with him because I want to remind
yeah.
myself later on down the road that I did this with him. And I'm trying to do a better job with Sterling's help of being proud of myself in the moment, of not
Yeah.
just being proud of myself later on, but being proud of myself right now for doing that. And I think another thing that's been helpful too is separating my motherhood from the fact that I'm a business owner in the sense
Mhm.
that I don't judge myself as a business owner based on my motherhood and vice versa, that I can
Yeah.
excel at both. And I think the scripture that keeps coming back to me is that to whom much has been given, much will be required. And
Yes.
so it requires a lot of later nights than I would like. It requires a lot more flexibility than I would like. And it takes a lot longer than I would like. But
Yes.
at the same time, I can look at the blessings of, I get to do this work. This is heart work for me. This is not, yes, it's a business and all of that, but this is something that's been placed on my heart from God. And I feel privileged and blessed to do it, and privileged and blessed to be a mom at the same time. And those don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Absolutely. And I think one thing we can't see, especially in these beginning years, is the longevity of a business. And that
Mhm.
there will be times when we're, full throttle pushing, growing, and then times when we take our foot off the gas a little bit and it's a little bit more in a maintenance mode.
Yeah.
And that this work that we're doing is building this big foundation for the work that we will do later. And
Yeah.
so I think it's true, even when we kind of step back from the business a little bit, because there are seasons when I do that. There are seasons when I kind of maintenance the business a little bit and I'm more doing the kids. And then there are times when I'm in a launch period and I'm not with the kids as much. But you're
Mhm.
right. I explain it to myself and I say, yeah, this is going to be an intense 2 to 4 weeks. And I'm going to spend less time with them, but I know I will jump right back into it with them after that. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I get a permanent failing grade either in the business or with the parenting side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love this podcast and I'm just starting to bring people on it so everyone can hear more stories. But I think it's so inspirational to hear more stories and to hear women say, you really can have a business and raise kids. And also, I think it's fine that it can grow slowly. I mean, so many
Mhm.
people online are like, buy my thing and you will be a millionaire in 2 years, right? That's
Yep.
not how most of us are growing our businesses though. We are kind of growing them on the side and then it's a little bit more time and it is growing. But like if you just keep going in 5 years,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it will be a big company and
Mhm.
you will have a big team and you will be doing a lot and you'll still have the kids, right? You'll still
Yep.
kind of be worried about both of those things and doing both of them at the same time, but
Yep.
you'll be glad that you spent this time doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me, I'm just so interested in talking about websites because so many people ask
Mhm.
me about websites. There are a lot
Yeah.
of people who are starting businesses and they're like, I need a website. I think that's pretty much true for most people. And there are all these choices out there now. There's
Mhm.
Squarespace and Wix and WordPress. And then even within WordPress, there are all these different kind of themes that you can use. And it feels very overwhelming. And so I know this would be impossible to ballpark, but could you possibly ballpark about how many hours it would take like a regular person off the street without technical knowledge to put together a website? Because I don't think people realize, right? They don't know that it's, I don't know, at least a 20-hour thing, I think. I feel
Oh,
like you're going
yes.
to slog for at least 20 hours.
Yeah.
And then of course when you're doing it, you have no money because you haven't had any clients yet.
Yep.
But just something like, okay, you could spend 20 to 40 hours making your own website, or you could spend $500, $1,000, $2,000. I feel like there are people that do websites in that range
Yeah.
and save yourself all of that time. So when somebody asks you off the street, like, hey, I want a website, how can you speak to some of those things to give them a clear idea of what's involved?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first key is knowing yourself, right? Do you have a good design eye? Because if you
Hmm.
don't, right, and I would say you might not be the judge of that, right? Because
Right.
what we
Yeah.
think is pretty
Yeah.
might not necessarily be pretty to the person who's looking at it, right? And
Yeah.
so I think, we can get in our own way with that too. And that's where, being part of networking groups, Facebook or, business groups or whatever that might be, and getting some of that feedback is going to be really valuable for you. I would say, so knowing
Hmm.
yourself, and also knowing how technologically savvy you are. And website work at this point doesn't necessarily mean you need to know code, right? You don't
Right.
necessarily need to be coding a website from the ground up. That's not what I'm talking about. It's more, if you log into an email marketing platform or something like that, do you instantly feel overwhelmed? If you do, even your basic website is probably going to feel overwhelming, right? And so you might
Yeah.
need somebody to walk you through that. And so I think it's kind of that combo of knowing your design skills, knowing your technological skills in a soft way. And then really, do you know, again, who you're talking to? Do you know what sets you apart from the copywriting side? Right. So there's really those elements. It's design, it's copy, and it's technology. And I would say if you have two of those, you can probably slog through the third.
Yeah. That's good. That's
But
good.
if you don't,
Yeah.
then that's probably the time to start looking for help.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just knowing how much money you have, right? Because some of my
Mhm.
clients have, they're really strapped, they're bootstrapping the business and they don't have
Yeah.
a lot of money to spare. Some of my clients have husbands with great jobs. And
Yep.
I'm just like, go find the $500 to $2,000, save yourself this time. Let's get your business off the ground much faster. And they
Yes.
can do that. They can shortcut that process. So I just want to say that out loud for all of you listening that the recommendation I give is contextual based on, like you said, the skills and then also the resources, time and money that you have available to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so good. We spent, just so you guys know, I built our first website myself and I have a ton of experience. So I'm not the right person to ask about that. Um, for free. And then after we had made, I think $200,000, then we spent $10,000 on our website. So when you go to Made for Greatness and you look at it and it's beautiful, I love it. But when you look at it, you're like, I just want you to know, like that was a $10,000 website. And I don't think people need that. I'm a big fan of doing something much more simple out of the gate. But I like to share those numbers because I feel like it's kind of mysterious. Like you go to the internet and you can't tell. You can't
Mhm.
tell how much people's websites costs. And so I like to share that. The last thing I want to mention, if you're thinking about building a website, is do it with a friend. Writing the words yourself is just nearly impossible. And if you get a girlfriend and you sit with her, put her in front of your computer, tell her what you do, she
Mhm.
will effortlessly write about it. You will stare at a blank page for 5 hours and not know how to say what you do. But your friend or your husband, they'll just ask you questions and they could write the words for you. So when we say copy, that's what mean the words on your website. And I just always encourage my clients to get literally anyone else involved because if it's just you staring at a screen, it's just one of the most painful things that a person can go through.
Yes, yes. And we get into this thing where we feel like we have to over explain the what of
Yeah.
what we do and
Mhm.
not the why of what we do. Literally, nobody cares what you do. They care
Mhm.
why it matters to them. And so that's what we need to flip to when we're writing. And that's really difficult to do in our own brains because we
Yeah.
know everything that we're talking about. And like, oh, everybody knows about this random fact from my niche when really nobody
Mhm.
does.
Yeah, because your friends will also, if you already have a website, go have your friend go through it with you and just have them narrate what they think. Because I do this for my clients and I'll say, I don't know what this means. I don't know where this button is. I didn't even read that. That seemed too long. And I'll show that it looks like to watch a person go through your website and it's very helpful. It's very helpful to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So tell me a little bit about being in the Made for Business Society and what it's like to watch other people grow their business, other Catholic moms, and to be part of that community. Because people always ask me, what is that like?
It's amazing. So Sterling and I have known each other for years now, I would
Yeah.
say, through all the different Catholic worlds. And I randomly, when I was on maternity leave, in air quotes,
Yeah.
with my son, was like, hey, I'm gonna, like just do some business research. And I was like, I always hear people talking about Sterling's podcast. It's amazing. And literally, I think I binged the entire thing in like a week, all of the
Oh,
episodes that were out at that
yeah.
point. And instantly I was like, I have to do whatever she's doing. I got to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so it's been incredible. Just working with you has been amazing. But also just seeing other women that are doing just such amazing things. And what I love is just, we all have the same mental blocks that are
Yeah.
happening, right? And it's
Yeah.
really helpful to just be like, but you're amazing, like viewing the person from the other, right?
Yes.
Again, even just having that friend looking at you and being like, you do that. That's incredible. Like God has called you to that. And look at this amazing way that you're impacting people. And so it also helps to build yourself up too, because you start to see like, wow, if this is how I feel about other people, they probably feel
Yes,
that way about me. Right. And you start to just have this, again, just this camaraderie of just knowing that you're not in it alone, because we do tend to work as entrepreneurs kind of in a vacuum, and,
totally.
alone at our desks, and just being able to see other women, other Catholic moms who are going through these same things and just not feel alone, and just also thinking that they're awesome, and just really being it's just such a pleasure to see the amazing things they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. And that's how I feel too. Even if it's just like that, even if they're not giving you that feedback, when you watch 10 other people have similar drama and you think they're great, by the time it gets to person number three, you're like, oh, maybe I'm better than I think that I am. And maybe
Mhm.
I could solve this problem the same way that it's so clear for me to see how she should do it. And by the time you see a couple people with the same thing, yeah, it's just really validating, first of all, just to be
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm not crazy.
Mhm.
Everyone kind of feels this way. And then as you in your mind kind of solve it for everybody else, you kind of solve it for yourself too.
Yeah.
It's just it's a funny thing that comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for someone like you who already knows a lot about sales and marketing, what have you learned or what do you get out of it? Because I think it's, a lot of women who join have no sales and marketing experience and they do come and want some of that. So I think they would love to hear why someone who already knows how to do sales and marketing, which is a very mysterious part of business, what other parts of business were you coming to learn?
I think so. What I'm coming to learn is how to move from this solopreneur mindset even
Mm,
into more of this larger, agency model, and just kind of seeing what that future looks like, and a lot of discernment, a lot of figuring out what that looks like in my personal life and in my business life. But I think what I'm coming away with is just how important mindset really is in this work. It's something that I've never really thought about in relation to business, and even just how
yeah.
your mental health and your mindset and the thoughts that you're telling yourself really do, impact what you see, and not necessarily in a way of like, oh, I had this thought and now I have more business, or I had this thought and now I have
Right.
less business, but even just the way in which you approach business. I'm
Mm,
a work in progress towards the peaceful business owner side.
yeah.
But, I think being able to see and learn those strategies has just been really life-giving, and just refocusing my call, and how my call affects what I do. Because obviously I'm a Catholic marketing company, so it's a lot of, very specifically faith-based work, but just kind of
Yeah.
reminding myself of those roots of, yeah, I am praying, but like, am I really praying, or am I just like, hey,
Mm,
God, this is what I'm going to do for the day. Check, bye. Right.
yep.
And,
Yeah.
really making sure that the Holy Spirit is part of every aspect of what I'm doing. So all of that
Yeah.
mindset and, spiritual life piece has just been super valuable.
Yeah. And you know what? That never goes away, right? I mean,
Mhm.
even with my multiple six-figure people in the Mary Mastermind, we're always talking about those things. I mean, it's so easy for us to lose it. I do that too. Sometimes I'll have like a bad 3 days and then I'll be like, oh, you were phoning in your prayer time, right? You're just like that, where I was just like doing it. I mean, I always do it, but there's a big difference between kind of going through the motion and then really slowing down, opening yourself up to what the Lord has to say, giving space for him to talk to you, and then trusting what he says. And so much of what I find I talk to my clients about is just helping them remember a powerful moment they already had. Because we
Mhm.
have powerful moments, but then we kind of get busy and we forget. And and when we just remember, like, oh, remember, didn't you hear this or didn't you experience this? And it just helps us to get back to that place of kind of peace and calm. And then we're much better at our jobs
Yeah,
in that
definitely.
place. All right. Okay, we covered a lot. I love it. We covered so many things and that was so fun. So how can people find you?
Yeah. So my website is gloriammarketing.com. When you get there, my first thing that I always tell people, go click on the free course that's going to pop up. I have a free
Mm,
Catholic marketing course. So
nice.
it's 7 days over email. You'll get a video in your email every day. I try to be brief, but I was an English major, so I do tend to like, if I can say things in 5 words, I will.
Yeah.
But no, there's short videos that you can watch that really just gets into the heart of, just getting started in Catholic marketing, how to find your target audience. I'll give the teaser of one of the marketing rules actually made me cry. We'll go into
Mm,
that in the
nice.
course.
I like it. Like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, spiritual revelation that made me cry about marketing. And so yeah, it's
Wow.
a really good foundation way, just to kind of get your feet wet with Catholic marketing.
Yeah, that's great. And also follow her Instagram account, and I'll link them up in the show notes so you guys can see it. But I feel like you give a ton of value in your Instagram account. Like you're always kind of giving people ideas and really good pieces of information. So I think even that is just a really valuable thing that you guys can consume.
Yeah, definitely. I love anytime I can interact with people for sure.
All right. Well, I'm praying for you. I am
Yeah.
excited to watch your business grow. I think we need more women in marketing. I think we need more kind of boutique marketing firms that aren't just like the giant guys. And I think you really fill that space so well. And I'm excited to see you grow and hire more people and give that opportunity to other moms because that's definitely where you're going. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you guys, thanks for listening. I'm praying for you. Get to work and have a blessed day.